So, I know, the Silver Quill deck was a war crime, and yes, I probably should be making yet another commander that is one of the Elder Dragons from Strixhaven, but there's somebody else that I think is a little more important that I want to cover first. What's up, guys? My name is Cirrus, and I make budget commander decks that can dominate tables without dominating your wallet. And today, we're going to be going over a commander that is going to be able to completely eradicate everything on your opponent's boards, but it's not going to make you get kicked out of tables the same way that the Silver Quill deck did. At least, I'm hoping that's the case. That commander is, of course, Moseo. Now, Moseo, Vane's new Dean, has flying, the ability to make a pest when it enters, but none of that is important. The most important part is the fact that this thing will reanimate a creature every single turn, well, the end of your turn, so long as we are able to gain life. And it's not like there's any way that we're going to fail to gain life in mono black. But before we get into the core strategy of the deck, let's go ahead and talk about the fan art y'all have submitted. And this one comes from Lass Arts, and they said it's been some time since they've drawn Cirrus fan art, and they decided to make my character with another streamer's attire. This one is Red Joker, who also does streams. And then this next one is from AXO. They said, since I'm an adult now, I can now draw NSFW. And their NSFW is a Vaporeon onesied me on a rolling chair. I guess that is technically not safe for work. That rolling chair is not something you should be standing on, or I guess I should be standing on. The next one we have here is from the Scarlet Necromancer, and they said that Cirrus wanted to crush garlic during his cooking stream, but missed the one that wanted him to crush her the most. Oh god, my community is filled with degenerates. I don't know what's wrong with all of you. As always, thank you for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown on a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord, which is linked down below. With that said, let's go ahead and get right into this deck. Okay, I gotta get away from that garlic picture. As I mentioned before, our character of the day, our deck of the day is Moseo, and Moseo, Vane's new Dean, has flying, which can help us use commander damage to close out some games that go long, but that's not really what we're going to be doing with this. We're going to be reanimating some pretty busted creatures. Our win state, or at least our stabilization state, is going to involve getting any of these guys on the battlefield. Arvinox, who can steal things from the bottom of our opponent's decks, Scion of Darkness, who can steal things from their graveyard, and can conveniently cycle himself away when we need him, Sepulchre Primordial, which can steal things from every opponent's graveyard, Herald of Anguish, which can put things in people's graveyards, Lorcan, the Warlock Collector, which can steal things that we force people to throw in any graveyard, Arden, which creates demon clones of things we steal from people's graveyards, and Junji, because, you know, Junji's pretty fantastic. But no, realistically, Junji's got Flying Menace and the ability to force everybody to discard, which is what all of these guys want to see so that they can steal shit. But how do we get creatures into the graveyard? There's a handful of ways to make that happen in black, and we're going to be running a handful of those here. One of them is going to be Miasmic Mummy. Enters the battlefield, and it makes each player discard a card. Now, you'll notice that this is different than what I would usually run in the discard deck. Cards that make each opponent discard, because that is just free card advantage. However, because we want things in the graveyard to reanimate, cards that say each player discard have a pretty unique place to operate here. Then we have Let's Play a Game, because we're filling up our own grave, so we can trigger the Delirium for this really easy, and it says we get to gain 3 life, which is exactly what our deck wants to do. Delirium Schemes, which makes every player discard 3 cards. This can often just rip everybody's hands away from them all at once, and then we get to reanimate a thing afterwards, leaving us with the best board state, probably. Then we have Creeping Dread, which will, at our upkeep, knock out a card in every player's hand. If we can repeatedly exhaust our own hand and go Hellbent, then Creeping Dread never actually affects us, it only affects our opponents, and if they run out of cards, then, well, that sucks for them. But if we do have a card in hand, this does have a burn clause attached to it if we can force match with our opponent's cards. Then we have Rotting Rats, which comes into play, making each player discard a card, and it's got Unearth, so we can reuse it again if our commander is not out. But life gain is going to be at a premium in a deck like this, so how are we going to accomplish that? Well, we've got Staff the Death Magus. When we cast black spells and play swamps, we gain life, which is, you know, everything our deck's going to be doing. Demon's Horn will also give us life when we play black spells. Disciple of Gristlebrand lets us sack creatures to gain life equal to their toughness, which oftentimes means that we'll be able to do things like sacrifice a Gary and then, you know, immediately gain enough life to resummon Gary, so long as we can get exactly one more life gain in the turn, which is pretty easy to accomplish in this deck. So yeah, Disciple of Gristlebrand, everybody. Fun card. Then we have Mire Triton, which mills 2 cards from our own library and then gains us 2 life. It's basically kind of a perfect card for this deck because it gives us the life gain and puts things in our grave, which is what we need to further our game plan. Shinra Reinforcements does similar with a mill 3 and a gain 3 clause. And then we have Zoff Consumption. Stare at Zoff Consumption. It's not a good card. It's probably never going to be a good card. This is Exsanguinate as an MDFC with absolutely none of the charm and no way to scale up with it. It is a bad Magic the Gathering card. However, in a pinch, it is an MDFC that can trigger our commander, so it makes the cut. It works well when we are exhausted of all cards in our hand, and this happens to be the thing we top deck and we're in the long game and our commander is out. It's pretty easy to be in that scenario where we are behind and desperately need a win, and Zoff Consumption can sometimes pull that out. Then we have the Vampire Nighthawk, Nighthawk Scavenger, and Kazari Revenant Triad. These are all functionally the same card with Flying, Death Touch, and Lifelink, so they can easily re-trigger Lifelink for us every single turn. However, Kazari Revenant can allow us to exile himself and then give his stats to some other creature if need be, sometimes giving the Lifelink just to our commander if we are in a desperate pinch. I would not recommend doing this if you can help it, because oftentimes just summoning the Kazari Revenant is a better use of the life gain you're getting in a turn, but sometimes you're in a pinch and you really need something. I tend to build most of my decks under the assumption that I'm going to be on the back foot and losing all of the time, so having that renewability is there to kind of help with that. Then we've got Chancellor of the Dross, which gives us a pre-game action in a budget deck. That's kind of rare, and it makes everybody burn for a little life and give us some life gain if we use it. But the most important thing is that it's a big flying life linker that if we can get it on the board, it will trigger our commander lots and lots of times throughout the course of a game. Then we have Tivosh the Gloom Summoner, which can convert any of the lifelink that we've gained in a turn into a giant demon token. Sangromancer, which can turn all of the creatures we kill and the cards we discard into life gain. And, like I mentioned before, Gary, Merchant of Asphodel. Sometimes I say Gray Merchant of Asphodel, and then I get corrected in my comment section, and you know what? Every one of you is correct. He's Gary. Then we need some reanimation and recursion because we cannot guarantee that our commander will always be out. Again, assume you are losing. So, Aberrant Return lets us reanimate 3 things. Coiling Rebirth allows us to reanimate 1 thing and clone it. Afterlife of the Loam lets us reanimate 4 things, but they have to be from different graveyards. Victimize lets us sacrifice a creature to reanimate 2 things. Then we have Witch of the Moors, which allows us to put creatures in our hand and also force my opponents to sack creatures when we get rid of, or when we gain life. So, Witch of the Moors sits somewhere between removal and recursion. It really could fit into either side. You pick where you think it fits most. Then we have Dread Return, which is another way to reanimate creatures and sack ones that we need to recycle, and Stitch Together because it is the cheapest version of Reanimate that we have access to in Budget Commander. Then we have Twilight Diviner, a card that I spent a significant portion of this deck's price on, and technically I went about $1 overboard just to include it. But what does $2.50 give us? Why am I using so much of the deck's budget to run this thing? Well, look at it. It surveils 2, which is what our deck wants to do. It puts things in the grave. It costs 3, so it comes down around the same time as our commander, so it's generally going to be on a good curve. And whenever we reanimate a creature with our commander, it will automatically clone that card. It is very hard to find a way to fuck up with that ability. Anytime a commander has the ability to reanimate a creature, I'm probably shoving a Twilight Diviner in the deck if I can find a way to fit it in. And thankfully, mono black means that we don't have to spend a lot of money on the land, so that budget is going right here. Alrighty, let's go ahead and talk about card draw, and this is where things get a little weird. So, Commune with Evil is a card I've never ran in a deck until this deck was built. It gives us access to 3 life gain and card selection, and allows us to take one of those cards, put them in our hand, and throw the rest into the graveyard. It's very hard to argue that this isn't doing everything on paper that our commander wants. Then, because we have so many creatures who do lifelink to gain us life to trigger our commander, and they are combat creatures, we're going to run Elegy Acolyte, which is a Bident of Thassa, but for black. It is limited to, at maximum, 6 triggers a turn if we don't have extra combats, because if we have double strike, we can trigger it twice per creature, but still, if we can get creatures hitting all of our opponents at once, any of our flyers with lifelink, then this will give us 3 card draw a turn, and, you know, double that if we can get double strike. Then we have Morbid Opportunist, the standard I see things die, so I want to draw cards card. Really powerful in a deck like this. Scurrilous Sentry has got Menace. When it enters the battlefield or it attacks, it connives. Now, entering the battlefield and conniving is already okay enough to be in the deck, but being able to do it multiple times and coming down the turn after the commander means that this card should be able to do its job fairly okay. Mask of Memory can also allow us to draw and discard cards, and our commander has flying, so just attach this to the commander. Zephyr Boots also does the same thing, but we draw 1 card instead of 2, and it can give anything flying if we need. Hostile Negotiations allows us to do the Fact or Fiction thing, where we throw 2 piles of cards at an opponent and we get 1 of those piles. It costs us life instead of gaining us life, but we should have plenty of life to spend. The other pile goes into the graveyard, which is where our reanimation takes place anywho. Then we have Disciple of Bolas, letting us sacrifice creatures to gain lots of life and draw lots of cards. Pretty perfect for the deck. Then we have Scheming Silver Tongue, a card that asks us to gain at least 2 life a turn in order to repeatedly trigger Sign in Blood. That is very good. That is incredibly good. Sign in Blood's already, like, the floor for good card draw in Magic the Gathering. 2 mana to draw 2 cards is right under the Harmonize amount, so that's about where I'm comfy. And being able to repeat it is just icing on the cake. It's better than having to shove Greed in yet another deck that does life gain stuff, so I'm gonna go ahead and give this a try here instead of running Greed, which was my first attempt. My first thought was to run Greed, and this is here. And then there's Well of Lost Dreams, a card that will turn all of our life gain into a ton of draw. If you're mulliganing, this is probably one of the cards you should be mulliganing for, because it turns the entire deck online, and artifacts are the second hardest card to remove in Commander, right behind enchantments, so it can survive a lot of board wipes, and outside of a Vandal Blast, they're probably not knocking this out early, since there are other stronger artifacts to be scared of. You know, like Sol Ring. Removal and interaction is where this deck is gonna shine. So obviously we are going to be a deck that wants to fight multiple people at once, so Accursed Marauder and Plaguecrafter have a spot here as per usual. Then we have Gaius von Balzar, since we are in mono black and we lack good ways to get rid of enchantments. Vile Mutilator as another way to get rid of enchantments. Dusk Mangler, because it gives us the discard, the killing, the burning, and everything our deck wants to do, it does. Consuming Corruption lets us throw all of our swamps at an opponent, at anything they have on the board, creature or planeswalker, and then gain life equal to our swamps while dealing damage equal to our swamps to whatever we hit. It's instant speed, it does exactly what our deck wants to do, and it's very hard to find effects like this better than Consuming Corruption at this mana value and at this budget. Then we have Noxious Gearhulk to blow up a creature and gain life, all the things our deck wants to do. Feed the Swarm to give us yet another way to clear out enchantments, and we have Henrika Dominathi, a card that I still really love from playing a lot of Pioneer mid-range. I wish I could play her in Pioneer more, but like, nobody plays Pioneer, and that makes me depressed. And if somebody from my LGS is watching this, build up Pioneer decks, and we can play Pioneer or something. I really want a chance to run this girl more and in more decks. She has all kinds of fun abilities. She can draw us cards. She can make people sacrifice creatures. She can even transform into a Flying Death Touch Lifelinker, which is exactly the thing our deck wants to be doing all the damn time. And finally, we have Armagon the Future Shark, a giant dude who can close out games and also blows up lots of creatures. If we have a particularly large life gain turn, this is the guy we want to be summoning. Then we have our board wipes, Necromantic Selection to knock everything out and reanimate one thing, Zodiarch to sacrifice half the non-gods on everybody's board and then have an indestructible dude afterwards. This guy also gets double points for letting us recycle cards like Junji and then reanimate them with our commander. And then we have Pox Plague, because, you know, it's cancer, so it's growing on me. Now, for ramp, I kind of struggled. I already knew a couple of cards I wanted to automatically include. So we wanted to have a couple of 2-mana mana rocks, so Guardian Idol, Mind Stone, Prismatic Lens, Charcoal Diamond, and Solar Transformer. They are the cheapest 2-mana mana rocks that do their job that we have. I would have preferred to run more 2-mana mana rocks that come into play untapped, but at this budget, it's very hard to do that without going up at least another $1. Then, obviously, Wayfarer's Bauble was going to be in, because it's an auto-include in most budget decks. But then I struggled with 2 other cards. You see, these are cards that I really like running, but they are not particularly great. At least one of them's not particularly great. That is Pristine Talisman. I like Pristine Talisman because it gives us life every turn, guaranteed, which is what our commander wants to see. It can add 1 extra life when we've gained 2, allowing us to summon a Plaguecrafter. It can add an extra life when we've gained 1, so that we can trigger the Sign in Blood ability. It can get us there when we need, so it's filling double duty. I think it's worth running in the deck. But then we have this. This guy was a struggle for me to justify. He's very easy to run in the deck. Pay 4 mana, drop him down. Suddenly, we can pay for all of our black pips with life instead of anything. It ramps us hard, and we have the life to pay for it, and he's even got lifelink built in. And when we cast black spells, he gets bigger. He does everything our deck wants to do. I just worry a little bit that maybe it will bump power level of the deck a bit, because I have seen Crick decks go wild. Though, being in the 99, I figure it's not going to break us out of bracket 3, so we should be a-okay. After that, we're going to be running 28 swamps, because we have cards that care about swamps, and, you know, they just budget. And then we have a bunch of lands that do things for our deck. Utility lands. Adventurer's Inn gives us a life when it comes onto the battlefield, as does Radiant Fountain. Petrified Hamlet allows us to turn off our opponent's lands as we need. It will not stop mana abilities, but it will stop things like Maze of Ith, and that is good enough for me, since cards like that actually do counter this deck. We are a combat deck. Losing access to a creature combat could cripple our entire strategy, so this card's kind of a no-brainer. Then we have Myriad Landscape, allowing us to ramp as we need, and then we have the trifecta of High Market, Hostel, and Westvale Abbey. Each of these is included for one reason and one reason alone. They allow us to sacrifice creatures to reuse them with our commander. High Market lets us sacrifice that creature to gain a life. Hostel just asks us to sacrifice it so that we can eventually turn it into the Creeping Inn. I'm going to be honest, the Creeping Inn I don't like that much. However, it does give us life gain, so it works with the deck, even if I don't like the card that much on its own. And then we have Westvale Abbey, which is one of my favorite lands of all time. Pay a life to make a 1/1 token, which is sometimes relevant in the deck, but paying 5 life and sacrificing a just bout of creatures from our board, which is pretty easy to do. Our commander revives a creature a turn, we summon a creature to a turn, our commander makes a token, we can assemble that Avenger squad pretty easy, and then if we can sack those 5 creatures, Westvale Abbey flips into Ormondal, and Ormondal is busted. Flying, lifelink, indestructible, haste, triggers our commander to the absolute highest ability every single turn, while also being a card that slowly closes out the game on our opponents. It does everything the deck wants to do, and then some. And with that, that's pretty much everything in the deck, from removal to draw to every strategy I can think of that we're going to be running. That said, we do still need to show you how to play the deck, because it's a control deck. Now, understand, it's a control deck. That means that as we're doing this, we are going to be having a bit of a slower game. Normally, I consider turn 8 to be the end of any goldfishing, because players have presented wins by then in bracket 3. But if I'm doing a control deck, I tend to go about to turn 9, because the assumption is I will be slowing people down enough to get there. That said, let's go ahead and get right into things. Let's talk keepable hands. If I've got 2 lands and a mana rock, I'm going to consider it keepable in most scenarios. This hand is making me struggle with my idea of religion, though, because it's a 1-lander with 2 mana rocks, a Twilight Diviner, which is the best synergy our commander has, a Plague Crafter to start loops with our commander, a Vampire Nighthawk to enable those loops, and an Arden the Usurper, which gives us the ability to turn the end result of these loops into extra life gain, extra creatures, everything. But 1-land hands are gambles, and the gamble pays off. We have a swamp here. Don't actually do that. It's not a good idea. Keeping 1-land hands is a terrible idea in most every scenario, even when you have a Soul Ring, even though I don't run Soul Ring. But sure, we got a swamp, whatever. We got it. Let's keep it. Let's go ahead and use the swamp, and then go to the next turn, play a swamp, tap 2, and let's go ahead and get that Guardian Idol out there. Next turn comes up, and here's a swamp. We are not punished for any of our decisions yet. Here is where I really wish we had more come into play untapped rocks at this budget, because I want to play Charcoal Diamond sequencing into Playcrafter, but I can't. I don't have that ability. So instead, what I'm going to have to do is play Gaius von Balezar. If somebody got an enchantment out early that I need to stop, this will stop that, but likely I'm using it to knock out a creature from everybody, and I'm doing that so that I am at least staying on curve. Next turn comes up, and there's a Mind Stone that will allow us to actually be on curve, and we are going to go ahead and play a Playcrafter and set our opponents back another turn. Everybody's probably a little upset with us right now. They kind of see what we're doing. At least that's my assumption. So our next move, we need to keep the Twilight Diviner in hand. We cannot use that until the nanosecond that our commander is doing its thing. Our commander does make a pest, so we can do this. We can play the Vampire Nighthawk and Moseo, and then Moseo will make the pest token. Now we can gain 3 life next turn. And that 3 life will make a Playcrafter, and we can summon Twilight Diviner, so we'll be able to get 2 Playcrafters or 2 Gaius von Balezars if we can get more life gain. We are set up pretty okay here, and we've set our opponents back. We should have bought ourselves time for this setup. Then we draw again. We got a swamp. That is exactly what I want to see right now. I want to get one of my draw engines, but I'm okay seeing the swamp. It's not the end of the world. Let's go ahead and pay these, get the Twilight Diviner out there, Surveil 2, and I don't need the Solar Transformer. I don't need it at all. That puts an artifact in my grave. And let's play a game I am a little skeptical on. I want to get to my draw engine, so I'm actually okay throwing it away too. We've got life gain right now to at least some degree. I'm not super into just throwing stuff away by drawing a card that doesn't help me. I guess it depends. If my opponents have hands that are decently low, I may keep Let's Play a Game up just to go ahead and cripple their economy completely in lieu of not having access to some draw. Maybe that's a good reason to run it. Yeah, let's keep the Let's Play a Game. No, I've convinced myself to do it. I'm a terrible Magic the Gathering player. I'm going to go ahead and attack with these 2 creatures, and that's going to summon the Playcrafter at the end of the turn. But before that, we are playing the Charcoal Diamond. So Playcrafter comes out, and Twilight Diviner sees it, so we are going to get 2 Playcrafters out. It's likely somebody's blocking the pest token. Nobody's letting this thing stick around when they see what we're doing. The cloned Playcrafters are going to effectively wipe the boards. Like turn 6, we've killed 4 creatures for everybody. In most games, if you've knocked out 12 resources from your combined opponents, you are in archenemy mode. Everybody understands what your deck is doing, and you're in a spot where people are going to start dealing with you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We also have the mana to play Arden, so what we do on this turn will depend entirely on what our opponents have access to, but I think the correct thing to do is going to be on the next turn. We go ahead and tap everything out, play Arden, and then we are going to create a demon token that is a copy of something on from one of their graveyards. And because the demon token is not a reanimated creature, it is not going to make Twilight Diviner trigger, which is actually what we want, because we want Diviner to trigger from Playcrafter. Now, Arden gives us access to lifelink and haste on all of our demons, so our Vampire Nighthawk and our demon are going to be able to swing, triggering, and now we can get out Gaius von Balezar, and we are going to be able to clone it. Now, likely what we're going to do is Gaius von Balezar, number 1, is going to say everybody lose an enchantment. We lack enchantments on the board. That should set people back. If they've played things like Utopia Sprawl, they're losing one of their ramp turns. If they played a doubling season at this point, any of the like do-nothing enchantments that I'm worried about, I'm knocking those out. If I see 2 of them, I'm knocking 2 out. I struggle hard with enchantments in black. I'm knocking it all out. Fuck them. But if I have, say, if their board states are set up where they've got a creature from Rebuilding and then an enchantment, then one Gaius is going to say creature. The other Gaius, the token Gaius, is going to say enchantment. And what we're going to do, the token Gaius, well, if the, yeah, no, they're both going to die. They're both going to have to die. No matter how I slice this, they both have to die, or the token gets to be the one that lives, because Gaius is more important to us in the graveyard than he ever will be on our board. So either we're knocking out 2 creatures each, or we're knocking out an enchantment and a creature, or a token in some weird, wacky world where that's necessary, but then we lose the demon, so maybe don't do that. That's where I stand. There's where I'm at. We should have kept the board really clear at this point. Turn 8 comes up, we got a swamp. This means we can now afford to use our Mind Stone. We don't need the Mind Stone once we're at 8 mana, because nothing in our deck costs more than 8, and that's going to give us a Feed the Swarm. This is going to be used to knock out a problematic card, and then I think I don't need the Delirium from Let's Play a Game, so we're just going to use Let's Play a Game. We're going to cripple our opponent's hands, knock those out, because once we attack with the Vampire, Nighthawk, and the Demon, we're going to be able to reanimate the Gaius von Balzar again, clone it, and then we're going to be able to... We will, with this setup, if our opponents don't do anything, they will have no access to creatures, no access to enchantments, and we've crippled their hands, because this late in the game, unless somebody has like a Heuristic Study or something, their hands are usually fairly exhausted if they don't have a draw engine. And a lot of draw engines are creature-based, like Beast Whisperer, or enchantment-based, like, well, Heuristic Study, and those are the things that we have been targeting all game. So, I'm assuming my opponents do not have the resources at this point, and we are at turn 8. We are at full stabilization. And remember, every single time we go into our turn, Arden is going to make a token copy of a creature. I forgot that that's a thing that he's doing. And yeah, no, this is not only a stable board state, this is damn near a winning board state. We may be hell-bent, we didn't get to any of our draw engines, but we crippled everything our opponents had access to. And that's about all I care about in a deck like this. In Control, I want more cards, but if I can't get them, I'm fine with how this is working out. I'm gonna let you know right now that once you upgrade this deck, if you can fully flesh out the upgrade package, it about doubles in power at minimum because of the just wacky cards we gain access to. So obviously getting access to good MDFCs in a monocolor deck is really powerful, since it gives us a lot more flexibility in what we do, but I want to tell you that Deserted Temple is a broken card in the full power version of the deck, because Deserted Temple lets us untap a land. And not only do we gain access to the Cabal Coffers combo when we don't care about budget, but we get access to even more cards that can sack creatures, making our loops even easier to activate. And some of those cards are cards like Phyrexian Tower, which will actively turn any of those sacrifices directly into gains for us. And if you have Urborg in the deck, cards like Dread Presence become infinitely stronger, turning swamps into either life gain or card draw depending on what you need. Twilight Prophet becomes available because it turns your draws into life gain by giving you an extra draw that can gain life and burn people. Grave Researcher is now usable because it's very easy to get 3 creatures in the grave with the deck. Metamorphosis Fanatic becomes one of our new reanimation cards. Probably cut Coiling Rebirth for it, I would guess. It's probably the weakest one we have outside that can be cut for this, but being able to reanimate a creature, give it lifelink, and then have lifelink in itself is kind of busted. Creeping Bloodsucker gives us access to 3 life gain every single turn for the low cost of 2 mana. This is the kind of thing that opponents need to remove, but will never fucking remove, because nobody looks at this card and goes, yeah, that's the thing that's enabling the engines, but it 100% is. Then we have Bontu's Monument, a card that can definitely make up for the lackluster ramp package here, turning a lot of our spells we cast into life gain. Archon of Cruelty, a card that does everything the deck wants to do. Life gain, burn, draw, discard, it's all here. every single thing. Whip of Erebos gives all of our creatures access to lifelink, which just makes our deck bend over backwards to do its job. Iara First of Locthwain, again, the way we can use cards like Junji, sack them, and loop them means that this card has a lot of premium viability in here, and it gives us life gain when we play black creatures. Stesian Sanguinist gives us access to a repeatable Exsanguinate, and the only thing it asks of us is to punch people in the goddamn face, and that's really easy to do. Speaking of creatures that are fun to loop, Kokosho does everything the deck wants to do and gives us 5 life gain when we sacrifice it, so, you know, it's $23, but if you're willing to play that, or pay that, or you're willing to proxy, then there's nothing in the deck we can't reanimate when we sacrifice this with something like Phyrexian Tower. And then the biggest budget card, the absolute maximum thing outside of Game Changers, I think, would be Bloodthirsty Conqueror. Now, you're gonna have to preface this that your deck, despite being a life gain deck, does not have Sanguine Bond, because if you don't say that, the nanosecond you drop this on the board, I promise you, there is no defense on Earth that will stop everybody from flipping the table and breaking your nose, because nobody likes seeing this thing when they know that the other half of the combo is just somewhere in the 99. Just trust me on this, it happens every single fucking time. That said, that's everything I can think of where the deck's concerned in terms of upgrades, in terms of strategy. If you want to pick up the deck, please consider checking out my Mana Pool link. If you've not used Mana Pool before, you'll get $5 off of your first purchase, but if you have used Mana Pool, then you'll still be supporting the channel when you use it. Also, if you haven't checked them out already, consider grabbing one of the channel playmats, which will help rep the channel, and it also helps keep me in lights and food and all that other bill stuff that adults don't like dealing with, that I've been dealing with the past 15 years, or 16. I don't know, getting old sucks. That said, once again, thank you very much for checking out the video. Thank you very much for sticking around to the end. And, I mean, hell, if you made it to the end, let me know in the comment section below. But if you didn't, then you didn't hear the thing I'm saying here, so I don't know. I'm making this awkward. We're cutting to credits.